So if you know anything about this channel and me, you will know that I hate Ducatis. However, I will use whatever chance I can to test drive a Ducati to remind you that I still have a big problem and hate Ducatis. With that being said, I'm very excited to show you all about this bike. All that and more on this episode of Srkcycles. So this is a 2024 Ducati Hypermotard. And yes, motard is a funny word. It sounds like retard, and yes, we're bringing retard back. Reason number one why I have a big beef with Ducati is why can't they just call it a Hypermoto? I looked it up, it all goes back to their Italian heritage, and they use the word motard, and everyone else uses the word moto, whatever. It's still a funny word. However, I have no problem with the qualification of hyper in front of the word motard. Let me explain. So Hypermoto is supposed to be above Supermoto. Now, if you're not familiar with Supermoto, a Supermoto is generally a modified dirt bike with 17-inch like sport bike tires and a modified suspension. It's set up so that it can handle really well and perform really well in tight corners, but also still do dirt jumps. And since they started out as dirt bikes, they're gonna weigh around 250 to 300 pounds, and the horsepower is gonna be somewhere between 40 and 55 horsepower. On the other end of Supermotos, you've got some pretty larger Supermotos. You got the KTM 690, and then you have the Husqvarna 701, and that's what I would consider big Supermotos. All fun bikes, really, really fun bikes. But what they're lacking is that big punch, that real big. If you're used to riding, a super bike, you jump on a Supermoto and you're like, I can have fun with this, but you're always asking for more. That's when the Italians at Ducati decided in 2007 to make a 1100cc V-twin 90 horsepower Hypermoto motard. And then bringing us back to 20 years later, and we have this, one of the baddest Hypermotos on the planet. This bike is powered by an 11-degree, 937cc Testostetta V-twin. Now, if you're wondering, what does Testostetta mean? And I'm probably saying it wrong. Well, it translates to narrow head, which means the head of this engine is a little more narrow than what they were before. Now, why they needed to add that into the name of the engine, I really have no idea. I think they think that that name sounds Italian, which it does, and they know that as Americans, like names that sound Italian, which we do. But I hate that they know that. Or maybe it's because they don't actually make bikes for Americans. A fun little fact, despite Italy being around the size of California, they still sell more Ducatis in Italy than they do in America. So back to the engine. This engine produces a pretty stout 114 horsepower and about 70 foot-pounds of torque. It's inside the classic Ducati steel trellis frame and is chain driven to the wheel using a wet clutch, by the way. They finally got rid of that stupid dry clutch nonsense, and goes to a nice looking single-sided swing arm, which you can say what you want about Ducati. Single-sided swing arms are super cool looking. Now the bike weighs in about 425 pounds, which is about as heavy as a 600 Super Sport motorcycle. However, a normal Supermoto has a lot less power than this would have. Now this is the base model, and the biggest difference is this one runs Marzocchi front forks, where the SP model would run Öhlins front forks. Now if you're wondering what SP stands for, it stands for Sport Production. Nah, you thought it stood for special people. And it doesn't. Now when you get that model, you also get a quick shift, you get a cooler looking sticker graphics kit, the whole bike actually sits up a little bit taller, and you get forged Marchesini wheels, which is pretty awesome, lighter and stronger. All that put together, the SP is about $4,000 more than the base model. Now that brings us to the prices. What's the base model cost? The base model comes in at $17,595, where the SP model comes in at $21,595, which is actually seems like not a bad deal for this bike. However, the Hypermoto is not alone in its category. Aprilia has their own version. They have a 1200 V-twin that would definitely compete with this. And KTM has their 990 Supermoto R that would fit in the same category. At this point, you have to ask, Sean, why do you not like Ducati? What is your problem with Ducati? This bike is the perfect motorcycle. Well, the reason is Ducati does things to get a 0.25% more power, and in doing that thing, it's 300 times more expensive to service and maintain it. And that drives me nuts. You see, Ducati, they use something called the desmodromic system, or short, Desmo. So instead of springs, they use camshafts and lobes to open and close all the valves. The pro is that there's no valve float. You can't over RPM and then float the valves. The negative is it's a lot more complex. It has to be very tight clearances, and it's a lot more expensive to maintain. And no one has ever given me the reason of like, this is why this system is way better than everyone else. No one's ever explained it to me in a way that made any sense that I was like, yes, I like that. So here's the problem. In 15 years, when this bike is, not worth what it is, but it's worth $5,000, it's still gonna cost you $4,000 or $3,500 to do the service to keep it running good. Which is why a lot of times you'll see an older Ducati and you'd be like, oh, that's a really good deal. And then someone who knows what they're talking about would be like, do not buy that bike. They're trying to sell it for $3,500. It needs a $4,000 service just to keep it running. Another thing when you buy Ducatis, make sure they have paperwork. If they don't have paperwork, they're worth very little. Paperwork showing that the service has been done. However, they have been getting better. The service intervals are much longer than what they used to be, and they are getting cheaper. So I will say Ducati is moving in the right direction. Maybe in a couple years, I'll warm up to the whole I'll own a Ducati thing. Now, don't let me bash all older Ducatis. They're not all dropping in value like rocks. There's tons of really nice older Ducatis that are very, very valuable. So the big question is, why did they make this bike in the first place? There's no real race category for it. They're not allowed to compete in supermoto races with it. It's not going to compete well with bikes of similar size displacement. It doesn't have enough horsepower for those bikes. So what's the point of it? On paper, you can say that this bike doesn't fit any category really well, and therefore, there's no reason for this thing to exist. So what's the point of this bike existing? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Let me show you. This part of the video is sponsored by our boys over at Brooklyn Bedding. Big thanks to them for sponsoring the channel. Now I'm going to walk you guys through with what I've been using and why I've stuck with it. I've had the queen size Sedona Elite mattress in medium firmness for a few months now, and I cannot say enough good things about the resort style quality mattress. So I picked it up after doing their sleep quiz, which was easy and only took a couple minutes. And it pointed me with something with decent support that was not too soft and not too stiff. And that's exactly what I got. So it arrived compressed in a pretty small box and was delivered with free shipping right to my door. Setup was quick and easy, a whole lot faster than like Tempur-Pedic ones that have to air out for a while. Once I unboxed it, it just came out and it was ready to go. What I was looking for was a mattress that would keep me cool at night, would not start sagging in the middle, and did not cost a fortune. They've got coolant technology built into it that helps you regulate your own body temperature so you're not too hot or too cold. Brooklyn Bedding has been around since 1995, and they assemble and ship everything from their Arizona factory. And since they handle everything in-house, there's no middleman, and their pricing reflects that. You also get a 120-night sleep trial and a limited lifetime warranty. So there's plenty of time for you to decide whether you like it or not. Again, special thanks for Brooklyn Bedding for sponsoring this video. If you are not sleeping as well as you think you should be, check out brooklynbedding.com/Srkcycles or scan the QR code right here. You'll get 30% off with code Srkcycles. I'm pumped about my new Brooklyn Bedding bed, and you'll be too. All right, so before I fire up this beautiful Ducati, let me do the words of wisdom. Matthew 28:19. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Now let's go ride this beast. I'm not gonna lie, I got some bad experiences with Ducatis just never starting. So if you own a Ducati, they're very battery sensitive. If they're not 100%, like or 99% battery, they won't start. What mode am I in? I'm in A mode. Haha! So like I was saying before, these bikes don't really fit into any actual category. There's no actual race purpose for them. But what they do extremely well is they're so much fun. This is an amazing bike to ride on the street. That V-twin's got a great lopey feel. It's got really good power, like out of a dig that I'm going to show you right now. Well, okay, I'm not out of a dig right now. I'm moving now, but all right, we're at 18 miles an hour, first gear. So much fun. The amount of fun you can have on this motorcycle doing less than 80 miles an hour is incredible. Also, the handling capabilities of this motorcycle, other than a full-blown supermoto, it's pretty unmatched. So cornering, all that stuff, acceleration, this bike's really gonna excel. Haha! It's just fun. When I'm riding on the street, this is the type of bike I want to be riding on, because you can actually enjoy it at lower speeds. 0 to 20 can be fun. I mean, obviously you get there instantly, but 20 to 50 is fun. All these speeds, when you're on the baddest sport bikes, when you're on leader bikes, they don't wake up until, you know, 100 miles an hour. They're extremely fast, but they're really made for the track, and you can't have fun with them anything close to legal speeds. Same thing with a 600. Now listen, you can have a lot of fun on these bikes on the street, but you're breaking the law. But this bike, everything I'm doing is legal-ish. When it comes to the comfort and ergonomics of this motorcycle, honestly, it's hard to beat these types of bikes. They're just comfortable. This is how I want to sit. If my desk was sitting like this, I'd be more productive. When you're on a bike like a V-Ride or something like that, you're sitting like this. It's comfortable for a little bit, but my adventure bikes and the Gold Wings are gonna sit generally more like this. I think it's the most comfortable. It's not putting any pressure on your legs or your arms. It's a fairly relaxed position. It's also a pretty sporty, aggressive position too. Now this bike redlines at just over 10,000 RPMs, and if you're used to, you know, Harley Davidsons and stuff like that, they don't redline anywhere close to this. You know, it's got great power pretty much everywhere. It feels like a pretty linear power band, although it does continue to rise a little bit when you hit about 7,000 RPMs. But the reason why people love V-twins, why people love Ducatis, is that bottom end grunt power. You could be coming up in a corner, you can be way too high of a gear and just thump right through it. It really is it's a pretty awesome feeling. In some ways, like I was explaining earlier, this bike doesn't really fit in anywhere. In other ways, it fits in everywhere really, really well. I mean, is it the bike I want to take a long cross-country trip on? No, it's definitely not. But it is a bike that you can get this, you can kind of weekend warrior it, you can go out, hit the canyons, hit some windy roads, hit the twisties, have the best time ever, and keep up with, you know, pretty much any other bike out there. You can also do track days on this, have a blast, and this can fill a lot of your bug of really aggressive, fun, fast turning riding. And even though I hate Ducatis, I never didn't like them because of the riding sensation. It was the more conservative parts of me that are like, I don't want to pay that much to maintain that bike when I'm just as happy with a Honda. But after riding this bike, maybe I can make an exception. Now it's funny, the Americans and the Italians have two things in common. We both like pizza, we both like V-twins. We're really dialed in on like V-twins is our thing. Now every once in a while, Ducati started doing a V4 with their V4 Panigale. Yamaha started doing another V4 that they're actually putting in a race bike. And you know, all the makers have at some point in time done a V-twin sport bike. Ducati has just, that's what they locked into. Yo, it's the police. Be cool. Be cool, y'all. Alright guys, that wraps up this video. I had a great time with this Ducati. You also might like one of these videos right up here. We'll see you guys next time. Remember, it's not what you're riding, but where are you going?